interception, and Mississippi State is going to beat Texas A&M.
Jim Ellis of Learfield with the call via Westwood 1. Final score, the unranked Bulldogs defeated the Aggies 35-28. Other finals and top 25 college football action. Number 8, Wisconsin, top Northwestern 21-7. Corey Clement ran for 106 yards and a touchdown in the win. Number 21, North Carolina took care of Georgia Tech. Tar Heel quarterback Mitch Trubisky logged over 300 yards and a touchdown. Number 7, Louisville dominated Boston College 52-7. Louisville quarterback Lamar Jackson, 7 touchdowns, 4 in the air, 3 on the ground, with over 400 yards of total offense. Number 9, Auburn completed a comeback against Vanderbilt 23-16. In the NFL, Bills coach Rex Ryan believes wide receiver Percy Harvin will get some playing time Monday night against the Seahawks. Harvin was signed this week after a 6-month hiatus from football. A 4th Buccaneers running back down. Head coach Dirk Cutter said he believes the knee injury suffered by Antone Smith Thursday night is season-ending. Smith joins Doug Martin, Charles Sims, and Jaquiz Rogers, who have all been plagued with injuries. The Breeders' Cup Classic is tonight at 8:35 Eastern on NBC as 2014 Kentucky Derby and Preakness Stakes winner California Chrome will compete in the race from Santa Anita for a $6 million prize. Listen to NBC Sports Radio on your local station, online, or on the free app. It's Maria Marino, NBC Sports Radio.
Did you know that more than 100,000 people a day are downloading game apps? Mobile apps have become a normal part of everyday lives. Now there's a new exciting sports app that lets you play along with your favorite professional sports team in real time. With this fantastic app, you can predict the next play and even outguess your favorite team members. The more predictions you get correct, the more points you receive. Points can be exchanged for cool prizes, like your favorite jerseys, hats, airline tickets, sports tickets, even a new car. You can play this amazing sports app by yourself, with your friends, or even with a large group of fans from all over the world. This incredible sports app is called Fire Fan, and it's available right now. Check it out. Sign up today at www.freefirefanapp.com.
This is 1050 AM, KCAA Loma Linda, and 106.5 FM, Yucaipa.
Cheryl Brown, considered by many as an independent, common-sense assemblywoman. What Assemblywoman Cheryl Brown really does is simply put our community first.
She believes in unity. Cheryl Brown believes that when we work together, we can do great things for our community.
Unlike Cheryl Brown's opponent who falsely attacks her record and divides our community, Cheryl Brown has run a campaign focused on issues and unity in the Inland Empire.
Cheryl Brown has helped invest millions in our public schools, provide tax credits for our small businesses, and raise the minimum wage, all while balancing the state budget.
Cheryl Brown is proudly supported by every mayor in the 47th Assembly District. The California Police Chiefs Association and the California Small Business Association all support Cheryl Brown. She has the support of hundreds of community leaders and organizations. Vote to re-elect Cheryl Brown to our state assembly.
Paid for by Cheryl R. Brown for Assembly 2016.
KCAA is having a baby, and we're in the labor room. Coming soon before you know it, a brand new radio station, 102.3 FM, Riverside.
Hello, this is Deputy Sheriff Paul Schrader. When principle, leadership, experience matters, Mike Safety is your first choice for Redland City Council and first on the ballot. I've known Mike Safety for years. He's a business owner, a family man, and your first choice for Redland City Council.
When it comes to public or private service, Mike Safety has the experience in both worlds. Mike Safety has been a CEO for 20 years, owned a small business, employed dozens of people, and serves in key supervising roles for public safety and special investigations for for the county. Mike's assisted an $80 million transportation and $110 million flood control budgets. Mike's a longtime community activist, contributes to our community of Redlands, and is the right choice on November 8th. Mike Safey is your first choice for Redlands City Council on the ballot. For more info, go to votemikesafey.com. That's votemikesafey.com.
I'm Mike Safey, and I approve this message.
Hey, this is Joe Lyons. This Saturday morning at 7 a.m., you're going to want to be at the incredible parking lot sale at the Easy Up Factory Store in Norco. You can save up to 75% on Easy Up Instant Shelters and more. Visit EasyUp.com for details about the Easy Up Instant Shelter Annual Parking Lot Sale. This Saturday, November 5th from 7 a.m. to noon at the Norco Easy Up Factory Store. State Senator Mike Morrell is committed to putting principles over politics. After owning a business for 25 years, Mike Morrell ran for office with 4 goals: oppose policies that drive up our already high cost of living, hold government accountable, keep our communities safe, and stop Sacramento politicians from diverting money away from our classrooms, roads, and highways. Mike Morrell ran a business, paid college tuition, and worked to be prudent with the money he earned. Mike Morrell has and will continue to work for you in the same effective and efficient manner. The election is about much more than who will be president. We will have the opportunity to decide who we send to represent us on our local school boards all the way to state senate. And our nation's founders remind us America is the first country in history to be founded upon the right to vote and choose who leads our government. On November 8th, exercise your right to vote. And while you're there, vote Mike Morrell for state senate.
I'm Mike Morrell, and I approve this message. Paid for by the Mike Morrell for State Senate 2016 campaign.
You're listening to an encore presentation of this program on AM 1050 KCAA, the Inland Talk Express.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Penn.
And welcome. You are tuned into my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon here out of the Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood, California with Universal Broadcasting Network, and then every Thursday at 7, Saturday at 1 on my syndicated CNBC News radio channel, KCAA, AM 1050. FM 106.5, and now on iHeart Radio as well. So anytime you want to be splattered with hope and happiness, tune in here, because there's no gossip, no scandal, and no K-words on this show. No Kardashian talk at all. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. And so we have guests and topics to that end. And as per usual, you can go on YouTube if you missed any of my shows with Tony Tennille from the Captain Tennille, Marianne Williamson, Marianne from Gilligan's Island, Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, Bob Proctor, Lisa Nichols, lots of inspiring people and inspiring topics. Yes, this has been known as a cross between NPR, Entertainment Tonight, and Hay House Radio. So that's kind of my thing, and I've been kindly dubbed as the Asian Oprah because I want to inspire you. It's big shoes to step into. I was actually introduced to her as the Asian Oprah, and she smiled. So that's good. Hi, Oprah. And I credit her with bringing the whole idea of spirituality, and there's more to life than just buying stuff, and that we are more than who we think we are, and we are certainly more than our past stories. And so it has been quite the weekend. I wanted to give a peace shout out to Compassionate California Youth Summit organizers and participants. I loved all the great slogans that my teens at my Compassionate Cops table came up with like United We Stand and Sit, and United standing for Unify, Negotiate, Inspire, Together, Equal, and Determined. That was come up with my darling sister team, and United We Stand. We won't take a fall because we want liberty and justice for all. And that's from Ian. Thank you so much, Faye Love, for inviting me, and Sandy and Joanne, and to Kyra, who's great creative child getting posts for peace and justice are standing up all over the world, and we'll be having them on the show for my Thanksgiving episode. Then Carol from the Human Rights as well. She was there. I met her, and she will be coming on in December. We'll have a whole show around human rights. And then guess who was at the Agape International Spiritual Center when the choir was on stage, but Stevie Wonder on Sunday, and he gave an amazing, inspiring speech. If you want to hear it, go on my YouTube. It's there. I just posted it up. 6 minutes of sheer unbelievable. He said he's grateful that he's blind. And that he felt bad for a girl that was mute. So you just have to hear him speak because it's amazing. And he wants to record with the International Spiritual Choir, Agape Choir, so I'm super excited about that. And then I got to do a little spontaneous emceeing at my choir boss's Kuumba School fundraiser at the fabulous restaurant Nick's in Beverly Hills. And it's part of the Hub City project in Compton, so they'll be coming on as well. And guess who bought my show package and will be my guest but the daughter of Muhammad Ali, Layla Ali. So it was quite the weekend, and now we're coming off of it and into the show about hope and happiness, tuning in right now. If you've just joined us, I do want to give a little background on why I invited this fabulous guy onto the show. He is the executive director of a group called Veterans for Peace. And you know, I've been on the air for 5 years, and every time we roll around a Veterans Day, I've wanted to celebrate it, so to speak, or mark it. It actually was my grandma's birthday, 11/11. But I didn't want to glorify war because I am a channel of peace and a promoter of peace. And then I accidentally on Google found this fabulous website called Veterans for Peace, found out that Veterans Day was actually not set up to glorify war. It was actually set up to promote peace. And so I did a little phone calling and talked to Colleen and his, I guess it's Stella. And so we are bringing you now live from St. Louis, Missouri, Michael McPherson. He's the National Executive Director for Veterans for Peace. He was a field artillery officer in the 24th Mechanized Infantry Division during Desert Shield/Desert Storm, also known as the Gulf War I. He joined the Army Reserve in '81 as an enlisted soldier at the age of 17 and is an ROTC Distinguished Military Graduate of Campbell University. His military career includes 6 years of reserve service and 5 years of active duty service. He separated from active duty in '92 as a captain. His experiences with war led him to his work now. Board member of Veterans for Peace and now executive director. He's former co-chair of the St. Louis-based Don't Shoot coalition that formed in the aftermath of Michael Brown's police killing death in Ferguson, Missouri. Michael has also worked as the national coordinator with the United for Peace and Justice. He worked closely with the Newark-based People's Organization for Progress and the St. Louis-centered Organization for Black Struggle. Michael is a member of the National Association for Colored People, the American Civil Liberties Union, and Military Families Speak Out. Michael's son, now an Army veteran himself, served a tour in Iraq in 2005 to 2006. Please welcome to the studio, Michael McPherson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I think it's especially, I was looking forward to speaking to you because you're not someone who's not been there. You're someone who actually was part of the military, not just for a year, for many years. So you take me back. Why did you even get there? Why did you want to go and serve our country? So as I do, take me back. Let me live that time with you.
Sure. Well, I grew up in a home, pretty much a single mother most of the time. My mother and father divorced. And my mother taught us God, family, and country.
Mm-hmm.
She taught us service. I grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina, where Fort Bragg is located. It's the home of the 82nd Airborne, Special Forces. So there's a lot of pride in Fayetteville when it comes to the military. And I've had soldiers in my life, uncles who were soldiers. I saw professional soldiers are professional people. So they were role models. And joining the military for me wasn't a poverty draft, as it has been for many per se. It was really a career choice because I wanted to serve the country. I wanted to give back. And I wanted to, be as professional as the young men and women I saw.
Sure.
And when my friends got out of high school, they'd go and get new cars, and the girls would want to date them. So I wanted to be like that too, So I had all good reasons that I joined.
Girls are always good reasons.
Yeah.
Until they're trouble. Anyways, that's another show. So, so you went into you enlisted, or you were in reserve, and then
I went
you enlisted.
into the military.
And then what
happened? Yeah, between my junior and senior year in high school, actually. So I went in pretty early.
Okay.
And then my mother, she's a school teacher. She's retired now. So going to college was also something that she wanted me to do, and I thought it was a good idea. So I went to college, and I went through the ROTC program, and then I went on active duty as an officer.
And then what happened?
Well, let me say, for me, the idea or understanding of peace and that war is wrong wasn't a big turn for me. I always thought war was bad. It was not something that, I wanted to go in the military and serve, but it wasn't because I wanted to go in and kill anybody.
Right.
I always thought war was a necessary evil. I thought it was something you had to do to bring about peace.
Right.
But as I got older and started looking more closely at U.S. foreign policy, looking at the history of war, and just learning more about why we go to war, I've come to believe and understand that war is more of a choice than it is a necessary evil. And certainly the wars that the United States has participated in, the invasions, etc., were unnecessary, especially in the last 25 years, to be honest with you, from the time I've been in to getting out to today. So, I won't argue with someone about whether or not war is a necessary evil. If you want to believe that, okay. But I will struggle with you about the conduct of war in our nation being in these wars right now, that we certainly could do it in a much more peaceful way, in a different way. And one of the things we say at Veterans for Peace is that those who fight the wars sacrifice the most and gain the least, and those who send us to fight them gain the most from the wars. And that seems clear throughout human history, really.
Right.
But definitely clear right now.
Right. And if you've just tuned in, you are listening to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. And my guest today to mark and celebrate or honor Veterans Day is Michael McPherson, and he's Skyping in from St. Louis, Missouri, and he is the Executive Director of Veterans for Peace. And we're talking about war and peace and Veterans Day, and let's just clear that up. I was really surprised and happy to read that Veterans Day was originally not a day it has become now. So take us back there.
Yeah, so at the end of World War I, and that was one of the most horrific wars, certainly that the continent of Europe had ever seen. Hundreds of thousands of people died. 20 million people died in the war in various ways. You had trench warfare, chemical warfare, and people were just really shocked by the carnage that the continent had experienced. So people they called it the war to end all wars. Right. People really felt, including here in the U.S., that maybe this was the beginning of something different, of a new way of humanity interacting with each other. So as a way to commemorate that, on the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month, because there was an armistice signed between the Allies of World War I and Germany and France. That day was declared a national holiday in many nations. And right now, even in Britain is called Remembrance Day. So at that point, most of the world powers had decided that war was an anathema. War was something that we really needed to stop.
Right.
But
End.
of course,
not continue, but end. Yeah.
Yes, that it needs to end. But unfortunately, there are many people who had different ideas, and unfortunately, many of those people were leaders of nations.
Sure.
And the seeds of World War II were sown in World War I. And so we had World War II, we had the Korean War, so obviously, and we're still fighting today.
Right,
so that
right.
belief seems to have gone away.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1954, after the United States had fought in World War II and the Korean War, Congress and the president decided to commemorate veterans and change it from Armistice Day to Veterans Day. And unfortunately, the holiday, I certainly respect and support. I respect active duty people. My son served. I served. I know many. I grew up,
My
like I said, in this town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's not a question.
Yeah.
And certainly I respect veterans. I'm in a veterans organization. But people have taken Armistice Day, turned it to Veterans Day, and have taken Memorial Day. And instead of using those days to reflect on what has happened to people and what is happening to people and the millions of people who have died, not just the combatants, but the civilians, those days are used to uplift war, really, to glorify war. Mm-hmm. And Veterans for Peace, our whole mission is to really abolish war and work for peace. So we've decided that we want to remember the original meaning of Veterans Day, which was Armistice Day, and to reflect back on the people who died and look for ways to end war as the greatest way that you can honor those people who died.
Yeah, great. Now, let's go back to something you said about the people who serve are the ones who give the most and get the least, and the people who are in power get the most and give the least, or personally have to give the least. So I'm going to play, not devil's advocate, but I'm going to put the moose on the table, as I say, because I'm Canadian. Instead of elephant in the room, I have a moose on the table. So the moose on the table is this. There are those who would say that we have to have war because we have to get rid of the bad guys. And certainly the T word, Mr. Trump, is really capitalizing on the fear factor of they're going to get us, so we have to get them first. We have to kill them first. We have to go out and be aggressive and don't tell anybody and sneak up on them and abolish them or kill them or execute them. And so war is not only necessary, it is our right to return America into what it was, the powerful force that, was stopped Germany, all those that brute, power, I have everything, you have nothing, and we're going to crush you. So have I summarized that? So there are those from that aspect who will say war is not a necessary evil. War is our right and our might, and we must do. Please comment and give me words that I can speak back, because I'm tired of hearing that. Right.
Well, I understand people are afraid, and I understand that. So I don't want to discount people's fears. Mm-hmm. But the first thing, let's be clear, people play on our fears in many ways to do things to people all the time, short of war.
Yes.
And in order for us to go to war, people have to play those fears up, and they turn whoever the enemy is, and I put that in quotes, into some kind of monster, because at the end of the day, you have to demonize a person to the extreme in order to kill them.
Yes.
This is why, as a soldier, you go through basic training, because you really don't want to kill anyone. Mm. So they you're put through training so that it becomes much easier to kill. And then, even then, many people come back and have what we're calling today moral injury, because as human beings, we really don't want to kill other human beings, and you feel extremely guilty about it.
Right.
I mean, you've been taught your whole life not
Do
to
not
take
kill.
someone's life.
Right.
Right. And then you go off and you do that. And for many people, it's really, really hard to set that aside. And then even people who it looks like they've set it aside because they seem to be functioning well in their life, you really never recover from taking another person's life. It's not something you can, just do.
Right.
So some of the things that I look at in terms of humans being able to live together are, we can look at the history of our own nation. For example, once slavery was very common, people believed, I'm an African-American person, which people who are watching this can see that.
Yes.
Person of African descent. And people believe black and white people couldn't live together, all these different kinds of beliefs. And
BS,
over
I call them. BS.
Right.
Belief systems.
Right.
That are
over
BS.
Over time, we've come to understand that that's not true.
Right.
That we can live together, and we have to struggle to live together, but it's possible. So you can look at many things that people one time believed couldn't be, but found that if you set your mind to it and look at the truth about things, then you can change.
Yes.
Another thing about human beings, and let's be clear about what's happening with war. At one point, battles were self-contained. Civilians didn't necessarily die unless the army swept through the town, and armies do this, and kill everybody in the town for various reasons. But today, the nature of warfare is that civilians are going to die because the weapons are so massive and so powerful. And we actually have the ability to destroy ourselves. And you're talking about presidential candidate Trump and his irresponsible statements about nuclear weapons, for example. So we could destroy, if not everyone on the planet, certainly most everyone on the planet.
Yes. Dalai Lama. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Dalai Lama actually called him more dangerous than Adolf Hitler. So that was a statement.
Right. And considering at that time they didn't have nuclear weapons, but now we do.
Yes.
Case. So for pragmatic reasons, and human beings are generally, when it comes to looking at what needs to be done in order for us to survive,
right.
We do that. We look for ways to survive. So for pragmatic reasons, we should understand that war is no longer something that we can participate in, because we could destroy ourselves. And no other animal on the planet is able to change itself and modify its surroundings and the way it behaves the way human beings can. So I just believe, just from a basic pragmatic approach to human survival, that we as a species will decide that we can't do this. And then the last thing I think is humanity has this urge, two urges that are in conflict with each other. One urge is to demonize each other and be afraid of each other, but we have this other urge to come together and learn about each other and care about each other. And I think the history of this country shows that tension, and we see that tension today with Donald Trump, and to some extent Hillary Clinton, even though I'm not saying I think she's the best candidate. Certainly, I wouldn't have nothing to do with Donald Trump whatsoever.
Right.
But you can see in the followers of the two that there's this want to come together and figure out problems in the people who are following Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
And many of the people, and let me say, for good reason, in terms of being angry about the economy and how they've been ignored by both parties. So they're angry for good reason, but the answers to the problems are one of hate and demonization.
Yes.
So we're seeing that tension today in our politics, and we've always seen this tension, but the side that says, let's come together and figure these problems out, realizing that we are one people, usually wins. And I think humanity is trying to do that today. And so I think love, caring about each other, will win out. So I'm very hopeful, because I see that in the human spirit.
Yes, amen, and so it is. I'm right there with you. So let me go to the other side of not the angry people, but the other
Yeah.
ones who really believe that we have to go to war because we have to stop. They don't want to repeat Adolf Hitler. So they
Yeah.
want to say we are responsible for what is going on around the world, and we have to intervene with our presence in order to not say we were there and we stood by and did nothing. So can you
Right.
also address that one for people who think that war or the at least military presence is necessary in order to avoid the Holocaust happening again?
Right.
This is like a little different slant.
Right, right. And I understand that as well. So one thing I think we have to look at how, so there's two things I think we have to look at, okay? One is how did we get to the place of the Holocaust? And how did we get to this place where we have something like ISIL, which is, I think, where the two things that you could look at and say somewhat equate each other.
Yes.
You know, Nazi Germany and ISIL.
Yeah.
So if you go back and look at history, Hitler and Nazis just didn't pop up out of nothing. There were circumstances that were created in Germany, the way that the powers that won after World War I kind of oppressed Germany and created a hyperinflation, a type of inflation that you and I could never imagine, where things cost 2, 3, 4 times what they cost in the morning. By the afternoon, by the evening, they would cost 3 or 4 times more, and you know, you just couldn't keep up. So people were feeling extremely desperate.
Yeah.
So when you have situations like that, people look to find, and it was super chaotic. So people look for order. And when people look for order in that kind of situation, they'll turn to someone like the Nazi Party and Hitler. I think if you look at a similar situation with ISIL, I fought in what's known as the first Gulf War, but I would say to you that that invasion in Iraq and that buildup at that time and what we have going on there now with our military is the same war. It's 25 years of U.S. presence, military presence in that region. And even before that time, the U.S., I went to Iraq and talked to Iraqis. I talked to Shia, I talked to Sunnis, I talked to Kurds, I talked to people who were not religious. And people told me how Saddam Hussein boasted about the U.S. helping him come into power. So when we talk about our presence in order to stop bad things from happening, our presence has helped create our policies. U.S. and Western policies have helped create the situation, just like policies created the situation that allowed for there to be a Nazi Germany to rise. We've created a situation by separating Sunnis and Shias, where they're demonizing each other even more. So ISIL, through all the confusion of that, not necessarily the first invasion, that set some cultivated the ground, so to speak, in order for the second invasion, which is what everybody thinks of now, which even created more confusion. And so out of that chaos has risen ISIL.
Yeah.
And so first thing I think everyone has to understand, out of chaos, when you create situations where people are completely desperate, evil can rise from that. And that's what we have.
Yeah.
So now the second, I said two things. So now you have to look at the moment. So how do we address the moment?
Yes.
Right. So yeah, it's easy to say that if the United States should be present to stop what's happening in Iraq or stop what's happening in Syria. But the problem is that our governments, and most governments, don't do anything for good reasons. They don't do it for reasons that's for people. They do it for policies that forward a small number of people's interests. So I don't see how putting more weapons in a situation where there's plenty of weapons is going to end the fighting. Why don't we call for no more weapon shipments to the region? Why don't we call for all parties to sit down together And maybe ISIL, people would say, well, why would we want to sit with ISIL? Because we want to stop the fighting.
Right.
Maybe they won't sit down. Maybe everyone else will sit down and have a discussion.
Right.
One of the problems with our foreign policy right now in Syria, for example, is that the United States has wanted Assad, wanted regime change for there to be no Assad. And in order for there to be a real sit down, Assad leaving had to be part of the outcome. Well, we're saying let everyone sit down without any preconditions and begin a process to see where we can go.
Yes.
And make sure that we're not sending any more weapons into the region. But these are the kind of things that if you believe that violence is the only answer, then you're not going to want to stop weapon shipments.
Exactly. And then there's another party that is really interested in sending weapon shipments, and that's the multi-billion-dollar industry called the military. So we've got lots of forces against peace built into the system called our government right now, and then the people who aren't thinking like you or systemically and want a, button push solution, like let's just wipe them out in one, I can't even remember how he said it. It was so ridiculous. But that is not the solution. The solution is in the sit down, it is the undoing process of what's already been done, which, as you pointed out, has taken decades of momentum in that direction. And for us to admit that we've been part of that process, to step back and be able to look at all of this systemically, I mean, that's what I'm praying for. That is the solution. I'm so glad you agree with me.
Yes. And it's not to say that all of a sudden all killing is going to stop. Of course not. Right. And all of a sudden you're just going to have peace. No, peace is hard. Peace is really harder than war because it takes constraint. It takes discipline.
Yes.
War also takes discipline, but it feels like it's easier to do because you're taking action and you see an outcome, very quickly.
Right.
But what happens is you create many more problems than you solve. Long-lasting problems, problems of hate, problems, the psychological scars and the physical scars.
Yes.
They last a long time. And just
the consequences.
That's right. And let me give you a quick example. Right here in the United States, the Civil War, we are still having consequences from the Civil War in this country right now. And that was over 150 years ago.
Yes.
And here we are still having consequences.
Yes. And I definitely want to come back after break. We're going to take a quick break to thank the sponsor that made this show possible, and then come back and talk about what's going on at home. Thank you so much. You are tuned in to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. And this is a show actually honoring Veterans Day in the traditional, or the way it was originated, for peace. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. Peace in and peace out. Remember the movie The Secret? Well, come to Carnegie Hall, New York, and celebrate the Lifetime Achievement Tribute for Bob Proctor, the father of personal development, November 14th and 15th. Join Dr. Marissa, the Asian Oprah, and the who's who of personal development, including other secret teachers, Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, Laura Langemeyer, and more, for an event to remember. For tickets, go to www.moderndayMillionaire.com. That's moderndayMillionaire.com.
Wherever your passion is, there's never been a better time to just...
And we are back. You are tuned into my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon here at Universal Broadcasting Network out of the Sunset Gower Studios, and then on my syndicated CNBC News Radio channel, Kcaa AM 1050, FM 106.5. And today, we are honoring Veterans Day with the original intent of peace with Michael McPherson, who is the executive director, national director of Veterans for Peace organization. And we just had a really solution-oriented, intelligent, inspiring discussion so far about war and peace. And now I want to bring things home because of your expertise and your involvement, first with the Ferguson, the solution after the aftermath of that, and I can't wait to ask you questions about how are we going to resolve what is right now, I think you alluded to it as the consequences of the Civil War. And that is the continuing, we took the lid off of it now. It's an all-out cop killing as a consequence of the hidden or unpaid attention to racial tensions, the unfair or the racial profiling, all of that that's going on right now. Please tell me what listeners can do about this, besides supporting your organization, but just on a philosophical level, what do we do differently that is going to get us to get along?
Right. Well, yeah, that's
and I want you to do that in 15 minutes.
Right. Right. That's a really tough question, right? So,
yes.
Well, let me say, after I got out of the military, I started looking at the ways that my community, as a black person, were being impacted by various ills, of course, racism. And I have to say, what I came to the conclusion is that all communities are impacted in various ways by the same types of things, and maybe some communities more than the other. Mm-hmm. So that just led me, not that I was looking at being anti-war, but that led me to look for a road to peace. So I see peace as being like the overarching way to look at how we all should live together. Mm-hmm. So specifically to racism and what's happening with the movement for Black Lives. So number one, I would say and this is to white people, that white people have to talk to each other about these issues. There are many white people who are involved in the movement for Black Lives. And if you are, you should go, and you probably are, talk to your friends who are not. Mm-hmm. And people who are not involved need to seek out other white people who are and talk about, for example, what is white privilege and how it plays itself out in our society. Mm-hmm. And to back up a second, as a male, I have to understand, and I do, that I have male privilege. So different people have different types of privilege. I'm heterosexual. I have privilege in that way. I'm able-bodied. One day I won't be. Mm-hmm. One day I'll have more physical challenges than I do now. And so there's, as an able-bodied person, I have privileges. Mm-hmm. So white people really need to learn how white privilege plays itself out in society, because it greatly impacts people of color.
Yes.
And particularly Black people.
Yes. If I could interject a great example,
please.
There's a PBS special that I use when I do valuing diversity work from a beautiful teacher in Iowa. It's called A Class Divided. If you can get a hold mm-hmm. of it, I'm sure it's on Netflix. But at the end of it, she does this, the whole story is around how she puts collars around kids and puts mm-hmm. collar kids and non-collared kids so that they can learn by experience what it's like to be discriminated against. Mm-hmm. And then there's an after effect where adults are also part of that same experiment. And a white woman says, I've experienced discrimination too. And a black woman looked at her kindly and said, I'm sorry, but when you look in the mirror, you do not see black skin. You have white skin. You will never know what it is like to feel discrimination like I do. And I will never feel yours, but I think if we can get to the point, and this is the Black Lives Matter versus, all lives matter. Of course, right. All lives matter. But if a house is burning, it's the house. That's the house that you're going to focus on. You're not going to
Right.
focus on the other houses in the neighborhood that aren't burning. We have an issue. We have to agree and put that moose on the table and say, yes, it is an issue, and we cannot just pull our bootstraps up and get over it. And it is not that easy, nor is it a button to push. And I love what you said earlier. It is more difficult to work at peace than it is to do war. You know, I do a talk called "Why Can't People Just Get Along?" And I say, because we can't. And then I go and sit down because it isn't natural. We do have to work at it, and we do have to do that requisite discipline. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. No, that's fine. So I wanted to give you said something that I wanted to address, but I wanted to give an example of why it's important for white people to understand how white privilege works. And I want to talk about it real quick because I want to talk about another piece.
Yes.
Well, I know what it was you said. So the thing about Black Lives Matter. So for the movement for Black Lives, or when I say Black Lives Matter, baked into that is the understanding that all lives matter.
Yes.
And the understanding is that when you lift up the people who are the most vulnerable, the people who are the most oppressed, when you lift up that group of people and those people's lives become such that we all recognize that those lives matter, then it lifts up everyone else's life as well. So it's not something juxtaposed one against the other.
Correct.
At all. And as you said, when you have to concentrate on a particular area, that's what you do. It doesn't mean that other areas aren't important.
Yes.
So specifically, though, about why it is important for white people to look at white privilege. So it's not just about police abuse. So when I was co-chair of the Don't Shoot Coalition, I talked about a few things that the Black movement for Black Lives is about. One is to change the relationship between white and Black people specifically. That needs to happen.
Yes.
The other thing is to change the relationship between people, poor people, and people with means. And I'll come back to that. And another thing is for there to be accountability. So when people focus on the police, that's about accountability, because you're not holding people accountable. And accountability means also training them so they know how to do their jobs correctly. But when you don't do your job correctly, then you have to be held accountable. Change the relationship between Black and white people. So government statistics have shown that, for example, Blacks and whites use drugs at the same rate, yet Black people are arrested, prosecuted, and sent to prison at a much higher rate for the same type of drug use than white people. So we have to ask, why is that when, we're both using the drugs at the same rate? And then you remember when there was the crack epidemic, here's another example. Using crack, you got a much harder sentence for your use of crack than you did for powdered cocaine. And because of economic reasons, many Black people were using crack as opposed to powdered. So you had Black people being punished more harshly than white people. Now, there's other statistics that show, and for example, here in St. Louis area, when the police stop people, they have to do a report about why they stopped them and what their ethnicity was and all that.
Yes.
So there was a report that came out that said that they're stopping people of color, Black people, more than they're stopping white people. Yet they're finding illegal contraband on the white people at a higher rate than they were finding it on Black people. Now, this was the case year after year, not just 1 year.
Right.
So then you have to ask, well, why is it? Because you're going against your own stats. Why are you stopping Blacks more than you're stopping white people when you really, be more efficient to do it the other way around?
Right. You'd have a higher catch rate.
Yeah, but right. And what it is because it's how, and it's not just the police, it's how white people see Black people and Black people see Black people.
Yes.
Because of how we were taught to see us as criminals. So if you take that stat and let's change that to a job interview. So here, a Black person's going for a job, white person's looking at the resume, and there's been studies that show that if a person's name looks like they might be Black, and another person, they've sent the same resume in, but they just changed the names. The other person looks like they're white. The white person, and as I said, sometimes black people do the same thing because white supremacy is what a lot of this is about. It's a structural thing. It's not just individual. They'll call in the white person more times than they'll call in the black person. If we're talking about a loan officer that's got the same idea about black people, it's harder for a black person to get a loan. So in every aspect of our lives, because of how we're looked at, it's harder for us to get positive things to happen to us, which impacts our employment rate. It impacts whether or not I'll be able to get a loan so I have capital so that I can open a business or improve my business. You know, it impacts everything. Yes. So then it looks like we're not doing what we need to do in order to move forward. But the actuality is that there are these barriers because of white supremacy and white privilege that won't allow us to move forward. So those are the reasons that it's really important for white people to think about and look at white privilege, because you can help remove these barriers so that, you know, I won't have to be out in the street trying to hold the police accountable, because you're helping me do that. Maybe not out in the street, but how you act in your life every day.
Yes, and that's such an important point, because many, and I'll group myself in that group, where we get offended. Oh, God, we're using the race card again. Stop using the race card. Or we'll say, but I have friends that are black. Or I like soul food. What are you calling me discriminatory for? I'm not, and that's not the point. It's like, just take a breath, and we're not accusing anybody of anything, but we're looking and trying to address a system that accidentally has evolved into this, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. The studies that I use in my value and diversity work, there's studies that show that if a black man walks into an elevator, people will step back. He's in a suit. There's just this already a habit of ours to unconsciously adopt some of what's seen in the movies, what's reported on the news, and thousands of things are could be reported on the news. Why is it that the ones that are spectacular, that reinforce our the BS bull belief systems that are not helping, get put on the news? Because the person producing the news is wanting, or consciously or subconsciously, just furthering that fear factor, or furthering what they want to. So all of those systems that you have talked about, if you're a person that's hiring, if you're a person that's giving a loan, if you're a person, let's really look at our subconscious filters, our mental models. Are we doing that which is continuing to infiltrate and to contribute to discrimination in our lives in America? So we're going to have you back on for sure, because we're almost out of time. But I want to give you one thing, which is I want to give you the Dr. Marissa Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award. I do not give this to everybody on the air, on the show, but you're thanks to Google, or my niece Christina works at Google, so thanks to Christine and Googling, I found you, and your work is fabulous. Please go to veteransforpeace.org if you want to help, and you're doing what you can, or you think you could do more. I'm sure their organization can use some monetary funds to help them with their work. Get involved. There's local chapters of veteransforpeace.org. I know there's one in LA. Please replay this and have discussions about this, and not take for granted what you think. We just need everybody to get over it. That's not the solution. So thank you so much for coming on the air, Michael. Anybody that you would like to thank that helps you in your life? I noticed there's a picture behind you. You have a flag there, which is, tell me about the flag.
Well, it's just the U.S. flag with a peace sign where there's usually stars.
Okay.
And that's a picture of Martin Luther King, who's a kind of role model in terms of how to think about these things.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully whenever I get a chance to come back, I would like to talk a little bit about that change in the relationship between people with money and people with means, because
Absolutely.
we can't leave out poor white people in terms of how they have been neglected and why their anger is fair. And there's no way you can really address racism without addressing how poor whites have not been treated fairly in this country.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. That's the balance, and I will definitely have you. I'll talk to Colleen and have you on. Season for Nonviolence is coming up, and I think that would be a great solution show. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. That was Michael McPherson, the executive director of veteransforpeace.org. Wow. I'm just so happy for Google. And I'm happy that I finally put that moose on the table. So it is now time for the end of the show, Balance Bar, where I invite you to balance with me. First of all, the Asian Oprah giveaway for today is another pair of tickets valued at over $500 if you're anywhere near New York. I would like you to, go to my website, the number 4balance.org, and put in Bob Proctor this time to get a pair of tickets to his lifetime tribute at Carnegie Hall, November 14th and 15th. There's going to be a panel for the Global Wisdom Panel for Peace there. Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith is going to be there, a bunch of other teachers from The Secret, and I will be doing my Asian Oprah thing there as well. So join me in New York. And then Round 64 starts today on the 21-day fast from complaining with Dr. Marissa. Yes, we started in July 1st, 2011, and I'm so grateful that for 64 consecutive months I have been a cheerleader for not complaining. So join at drmarissa.tv and say, I want to join. And for a limited time, you will get a free companion app that goes with the fast. And if you make it 21 days and are registered, you will join Eva from Kentucky, Daia from Long Beach, and Janina from Japan, who are winners because they went 21 days and got a free pack of my motivational cards, 52 card. Pick me up, stacking the deck for life balance. And thank you again to Purple Planet Music for always providing background music for my commercials. And next week, it is the election. I will be broadcasting live here from Universal Broadcasting Network on the election, and I am focused on after the election. How do we get the blue and the red to come back together? I have to be honest. I made the mistake of seeing which Facebook friends of mine like Donald Trump, and I'm having a real time trying to be balanced about how I'm seeing them. And so I'm bringing on Soraya Dean, who's the founder of Muslim Women Speakers, and her best Jewish friend, Philippa Sklar. And they're going to come on with me next week to talk about how do we come back together? How do we bring our country back together after this unprecedented, divisive election process? So tune in with me next week for another scintillating episode of Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa Pay. That's P for positive, EI. And remember, it is all about balance. Peace in and peace out.
Don't turn a page. I couldn't see past my rage. I wanted to dance, but I pushed you away. Now I'm on my knees. I'll listen to what you say, and you say said, be my partner, dance with me. Just hold on, I will lead. Don't be afraid if you can't see. I promise you joy in the mystery. I wanted to believe in magic, so I put on a masquerade.
You're listening to KCAA, Loma Linda, California. The best station in the nation.
Your NBC Sports Radio update starts now.
Upset alert. This is Maria Marino. Number 4, Texas A&M had one more chance to score, but Mississippi State's defense wouldn't have it.
Now Hubernack going to throw it up in the middle, and the pass is going to be broken up and intercepted. Intercepted by Mark McLaurin. That's the nail in the coffin. The Bulldogs are going to win at home on a deflection and a McLaurin interception, and Mississippi State is going to beat Texas A&M.
Jim Ellis of Learfield with the call via Westwood 1. Final score, the unranked Bulldogs defeated the Aggies 35-28. Other finals and top 25 college football action. Number 8, Wisconsin tops Northwestern 21-7. Corey Clement ran for 106 yards and a touchdown in the win. Number 21, North Carolina took care of Georgia Tech. Tar Heel quarterback Mitch Trubisky logged over 300 yards and a touchdown. Number 7, Louisville dominated Boston College 52-7. Louisville quarterback Lamar Jackson recorded 7 touchdowns, 4 in the air, 3 on the ground, with over 400 yards.